Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the City of St. Petersburg's FY19 Budget Open House. My name is Liz Makovsky, and I am the Director of Budget Management. I hope that everyone had the opportunity tonight to visit with the senior leadership of our city, and that you have a better appreciation for what we do on a daily basis. Tonight is about hearing from you, and if you'd like to have 3 minutes to speak, please make sure to fill out one of the yellow cards and return it to a member of the city's clerk staff, who are located in the middle of the room in the back. Before moving on to the public comment portion of tonight's evening, I would like to provide a little context with a quick summary of the city's FY19 budget process. Building a budget is about priorities, and just like in our personal finances, where there are not unlimited resources and we have to prioritize expenses, so too does the city. Our goal on an annual basis is to ensure that the citywide investments we make support our values and allow us to progress down our pathways to our vision of being a city where the sun shines and all who come to live, work, and play. The city budget development process is dictated by state statute and city ordinance, and we have developed a series of internal processes that allow us to meet all of the deadlines prescribed by law. Starting back in December of last year, the budget department began planning the process for FY19. At this point in the process, we are working in 3 different fiscal years, having just completed FY17, City Council recently adopting FY18, and planning for 19. Held in January and February, the kickoff meetings start the formal budget development process. High-level framework and information is given out to the departments as it relates to their budget submissions at these meetings. Then in March, line item review meetings are held with every department. These meetings are a time to review in detail the budget department line items. We look at each line item in the budget and compare it to previous expenses and revenues levels and ensure that each budget is aligned with the values and strategic pathways that will lead us to our vision. In April and May, we have workshops or committee of the whole meetings with City Council to report on the progress we have made on the budget and to solicit input and direction from City Council. Also around this time each year, we hold a budget open house where the public has an opportunity to share their thoughts and priorities with the city. Tonight, the floor is yours, and the mayor and City Council wants to hear from you. Besides tonight, we will continue to have opportunities for the public to provide input on the budget. There is a survey on our city's website and 2 public hearings in September where public comment is encouraged. Other important dates in the budget process include late in June or no later than July 1st, where we get certified values from the property appraiser's office, on or before July 15th, when Mayor Kreisman is required to submit the City Council his balanced budget recommendations. On July 19th, we asked City Council to set a tentative millage rate and set the 2 public hearing dates. The first public hearing is scheduled for September 6th, and the second public hearing on September 20th. This is where City Council adopts the FY19 budget that runs from October 1st through September 30th. Thank you again for joining us this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you tonight. We have a few speakers tonight before we move on to the public comment portion. First, I would like to introduce the Pinellas County Property Appraiser, Mike Twitty.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you all being out here tonight. I thank the mayor's office and the mayor personally for inviting me to be out here this evening. I appreciate you all being engaged in your city, and you have a very beautiful and vibrant one to live and play in here, so you're very fortunate. Hey, Frank. So see some friendly faces in the crowd, so that's always nice. I will assure you that values are looking quite well within the city of St. Petersburg, as you might expect. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know. All you have to do is look around and read the paper and see the construction that's going on in your hometown here to know that. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention is I am not the tax collector. I am the property appraiser. I get confused for him quite often. He's the one they speak badly of in the Bible. I was left out of the Bible, so just wanted to get that clear. And I would like to let you know that we have a table over here to my right. My deputy of Assessment Administration is out here this evening, and he is educating people on Amendment 1, which will be on the ballot in November. How many of you all have been to the Property Appraiser's website? Okay, a good number. We have a tool on the website where you can, at home, you can do it yourself. We're calling it the 3hxestimator.org is actually the website you can go straight to. That's a statewide tool. We have some information over at the table. It looks kind of like this, but it has the website on it where you can go straight to the statewide tool, pick your county, enter your address, and it will tell you if you would receive any benefit from the Amendment 1 vote, which is related to an additional $25,000 of homestead exemption. In theory, it sounds good. Who doesn't want an additional $25,000 of homestead exemption? Well, it's not so fast, my friend. It's not that simple. It's banded, so unless your assessed value breaks 100,000 of assessed value, you will not see any benefit. What does that mean in the city of St. Pete? That means half of your homesteaded property owners will see no benefit. So come by our table over there. We'll give you some information. We can pull up your address in a second and let you know what your perceived benefit would be if the exemption existed today. So that is one of the duties of the Property Appraiser's Office. We not only value every parcel in the county every year, which is about 450,000, we also administer all the exemptions. So that's homestead exemptions, senior exemptions, all that type of information. So Kevin McKeon's happy to help you out. I will be around as well. Love to meet you, and we can help you with that. If you have any additional questions, you can always go to the Property Appraiser's website, which is pcpao.org. All that information is at our table over there. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Twitty. Next, for some opening remarks, I would like to introduce our City Council Chair, Lisa Wheeler-Bowman.
Thank you and good evening. Can you all hear me? Okay, because I know it's hard for us to hear up here because of the echo. So thank you, Liz, and thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. And I always look forward to hearing from our residents, and this is a very important process that allows council to make public policy decisions and, when it comes to our budget. And over the past 4 years, as you can see, this city council has been very aligned with Mayor Kreisman, and we plan to continue to do that. I want to thank the staff as well that's here tonight. So thank you again for coming out. We look forward to hearing your concerns and everything about the budget, and I will introduce Mayor Kreisman, unless you're going to do that, Liz. The best mayor ever.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Let me also thank you for being here and for participating in this open house. I hope you had an opportunity to go around the room and meet with our administrators and our staff and ask them any questions that you might have had prior to this opportunity to share your thoughts with us. I had somebody ask me a little earlier tonight why were we doing this seemingly a little bit earlier in the budget cycle than we have done it in years past. And I think, the reason that we're doing it is the more lead time we have to hear from you all before we get close to that time when we have to present the budget and council has to approve it, the more time that we have to incorporate things that we hear tonight potentially into the budget. And so for us, it's more important to give ourselves as much time to take in what y'all's concerns are and what's important to you guys and try and see how we can incorporate it and make it fit into our budget before we present it to council. I want to take a minute real quickly to thank my team who's worked really hard on the budget and to get us to where we're at right now, and that's starting with my budget director, Liz Makovsky, and her entire team, our city administrator and deputy mayor, Dr. Kanika Tomlin, my assistant city administrator, Tom Green. So as you all, I'm sure know, our local economy has been pretty strong these past few years, and it has really allowed us to dig out of this recession and really get back to normal a little bit more. But it's also allowed us to invest in some new priorities that we have. And as a result, I think St. Petersburg is in a very strong place, and it's as safe as we've ever been. The numbers really back that up, and we are moving closer, I believe, to our vision of being a city of opportunity where the sun does shine on all. But we've also tried to be very fiscally responsible in getting to where we are today. We are planning and we are saving for the future. And so we are going to be recommending again to set aside another $500,000 for our Economic Stability Fund, bringing the total to $3 million since I took office. Now, as a result of the actions that we've taken, thank you. As a result of the actions that we've taken the past few years, we've seen our bond and credit ratings stabilize and increase. And that's really important to our city because in those instances where we do need to borrow money for projects, having a strong bond and credit rating helps bring down the cost, and that ultimately means as a city we're saving money on what we're borrowing. So now I want to talk about some of the priorities that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And obviously our number one priority is always public safety. So in this year's proposed budget, a total of $146.784 million, which represents 55.7% of the preliminary fiscal year 19 general fund budget, will be invested in our police and fire rescue departments. What that equates to is all, and this is the part that a lot of people don't get, all of our fiscal year 19 ad valorem revenue, our property tax revenue, an estimated 119, almost 120 million, will be used to fund public safety. But we're also investing in affordable housing. We know that is we know that is a significant issue in the city of St. Petersburg. So as an example, we're recommending $50,000 for codes to acquire select properties through our foreclosure process with the goal of creating affordable home ownership opportunities. We have a very successful program called Rebates for Residential Rehabs. We're proposing another $100,000 in that program. And so we're going to continue to invest in affordable housing. One of the ways that we keep crime down and enhance our quality of life and create opportunities for people is through our urban affairs platform and our many outreach and prevention efforts. So as an example of those, we are proposing $675,000 for intervention and prevention through the Cohort of Champions program and my Brothers and Sisters Keeper program. So this and so many other of our investments is kind of an illustration of our commitment to keeping the youth of this community headed in the right track and really give them hope for a better future. And really that's what this is about. It's what we do. It's what council does. It's about the future. It's about building a city that we can all be proud of and a city that we can be proud to hand over to the next generation. So again, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you, Mike, for joining us here tonight. and I look forward to hearing from all of you tonight about your priorities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mayor Kreisman. I also want to welcome, today we have with us our City Council member, Gina Driscoll from District 6. And the City Clerk, will you please read the first two names for public comment?
Ruth Whitney and Frank Wells. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Good evening. Thank you for having these public hearings, and thank you for making public safety and other things that help people priorities. I'm here tonight to speak for battered women, women who are in their homes tonight and are afraid of being beaten or are being beaten and are afraid to speak at events like tonight. Domestic violence is a horrible crime, and we have a police department that is making the arrests. And after they're arrested, the victim advocates are there to help the victims of domestic violence and rape and other serious crimes, as well as all crimes. However, and I maybe should explain, not everyone knows what victim advocates do. They help them through the criminal justice process. They help them with the needs they have after being a victim of crime. Before 2008, we had 4 victim advocates with our police department in St. Petersburg. You all know the recession happened, and Mayor, you just said that we've gotten money, we're getting over the recession finally. It's been 10 years, but we still only have 2. They cut us down to 2, and we still, after 10 years, only have 2 victim advocates to help with victims of domestic violence. I'm asking you to increase that number to 4 again. We need 4, and this will help the victims with the criminal justice system. They are afraid of the batterers. If they go and testify, they can help them with that, and they can help them to cooperate because they're afraid to cooperate, and then you can get a prosecution. If you get a prosecution of the batterers, hopefully the judge will sentence them to batterers intervention program, which we have in this county, and that can get them to stop battering. That's the one thing that will probably get them to stop battering. Thank you very much.
Frank Wells.
Hello, and thank you all for taking our comments tonight. I'm Frank Wells with Bright Community Trust. We're a funded partner of the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, receiving a major grant to convene a half-dozen nonprofits that work on affordable housing, particularly in the South St. Pete CRA. And so I bring a group of comments from that wonderful group of a half-dozen nonprofits, including Bright Community Trust, Habitat for Humanity, Neighborhood Home Solutions, and a number of others. In 3 minutes, I'm going to give you a really quick list of bullet points. First and foremost, we know that we're in a thriving economy, which is fantastic, but that's also meant that in 2015, we had 17,000 households in the city that spent more than half of their income on their housing costs. When you spend that much on housing, good luck affording a car, and if you do own a car, good luck if your car breaks down. Good luck on affording good, healthy food for your family, on taking advantage of educational opportunities. That number was 17,000 in 2015. In 2017, it stood at 19,000. So we've been making some good efforts, but we're going backwards. In this thriving economy, it's leaving a lot of folks behind. So we'd ask you to look first and foremost for a dedicated local funding source that over the long term can always fund affordable housing in our city. You might consider something like linkage fees that could support more affordable housing. Another way that the city could leverage its assets and its ability to tap federal funds is to create a revolving loan fund that could be used
by nonprofits to leverage bigger projects in the city as we look to increase density, because we're not making any more land in the city, of course. In an era of increasing construction costs, increasing financing costs, it's more critical than ever that we increase down payment assistance to first-time home buyers. We know that buying a home is a great pathway out of poverty for a lot of families, but it's harder and harder for working families, those nurses, teachers, firefighters, and other working families in our city to afford a home when costs are increasing and incomes are barely increasing. We'd ask you to look at increasing in-team funding that can support weatherization, a new roof, other kinds of basic improvements to help people stay in their homes. Related to that, you'll find too that we spend a relatively modest amount on weatherization and other energy efficiency improvements. We have an 8 times larger amount of money dedicated to helping people pay their utility bills. If we spend some of those utility bill dollars on increasing energy efficiency, weatherization in homes, we'd spend less money helping them pay their utility bills every month. Please take a look at that. And then finally, Mayor Kreisman mentioned the funding that we have for the Codes Department to increase foreclosures on vacant lots that have egregious amounts of code liens. We'd ask you to consider figuring out how to make those lots available for free to nonprofits. When we spoke with the Florida Housing Coalition about the way the city of St. Petersburg does this, we found out we're the only city that anyone knows of that charges their nonprofits to build affordable housing on vacant lots. Thanks.
Brother John Muhammad and Dick Pierce.
The little people. Good evening. Greetings, Mayor, City Chair, Councilwoman, and staff. It's always a pleasure to come before you and share what we found after speaking directly with people in the community about what matters most to them. As members of the People's Budget Review, we're also happy to see the city following suit and asking for citizen input directly through surveys. Last year, we stood in this very spot and shared with you our collective vision for a new deal for St. Pete. And we are happy to report that some of our points of progress are being moved and the details of how to best proceed with others are actually being worked on. I think it's important also to note that this work is being done by a faithful group of citizen leaders who are volunteering their time to make sure that as a community we also take action while holding elected officials accountable. This wasn't in my notes, but I think they say we have 3 minutes, so if anyone that's here that's affiliated with the New Deal for St. Pete or People's Budget Review, if you could just stand for me real briefly. And I think we want to applaud them because Brother John can be a little demanding sometimes. So, the following are suggestions that have been developed by these dedicated citizens. The city has passed ordinances that has hard to hire and apprenticeship requirements for certain projects. We would like to see the city hire an FTE or a dedicated staff member whose sole purpose it is to ensure implementation, compliance, and enforcement with this policy to make sure that it's not just something that looks good on paper, but it's a policy that's actually working. While we also applaud the efforts of the Workforce Development Council, we think a greater percentage of the funds that they have received should go towards direct outreach to those who are in economically depressed areas who are not already connected to programs and benefiting from those and are most in need of help. Right now, we're seeing people who are in programs are the ones who get get benefits from those programs. But there's a whole lot of people who are outside of those programming and they need the help also. And we'd like to see more funding for direct outreach to them. Other members of the team will also share their thoughts on how you can support our work in the development of a community-owned grocery co-op, in addition to ways to increase the availability of affordable housing in the city. And again, it is our hope that you will continue to take actions that reflect the will of the community and those who have committed themselves to manifesting the points of progress contained in the New Deal for St. Pete under the banner of action and accountability. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Dick Pierce. I'm a citizen of St. Petersburg and a proud member of the New Deal for St. Pete that John just told you about. And I have also a passion for bringing prosperity into South St. Petersburg. I'm a member of the New Deal's Affordable Housing Committee, And that committee that states that affordable housing is in a crisis situation and needs bold plans, actions, and funding. It's already been mentioned, the city quotes that over 19,000 individuals in this city are burdened. That means their housing or ownership costs more than 50% of their income. This is across the entire spectrum of renters and owners in St. Petersburg. And affordable housing has some ready existing buyers in the form of hundreds of potential homeowners for houses in the range of $100,000 to $140,000. The supply, particularly in South St. Petersburg, for these type of houses is very, very low. And we're producing only tens of units per year. This should be in the range of hundreds of units per year. And by affordable, we need affordable for all families, particularly those in the range of 80% range of median household income, and for many also who are in the 80 to 120% range. The affordable gets more difficult every year. Land prices, construction costs, interest rates are starting to put home ownership more and more out of reach. We need innovative and substantial city, county, state, federal, and other programs to help both the buyer and the builder, the renter and the buyer, and the owner and the tenant. The South St. Petersburg CRA is a particularly hard hit on affordable housing. 71% of its households can afford only a $400 to $1,000 a month rent payment, and most of these families are burdened. That means over 50% for their rent or payment. Right? There's a good number of certified mortgage-ready potential buyers, thanks to some city programs and some NGOs getting people ready. But the supply of the 80,000 to 130,000 range houses is at an incredible low. I checked it, it's 50 units in a area that has over 4,000 units. Right? So we've suggested, and we will suggest in a detailed proposal, that St. Petersburg and all of its allies and sources must declare affordable housing on all fronts, all types, and all income levels. And we need to move to the range of a 5-year plan of $100 million for housing and another $100 million for rental. Thank you.
Bruce Moore and Lee Davis.
Good evening. I am a part 2 of the affordable housing conversation for the New Deal St. Pete. This work group is a diverse group of tremendous range of personal and professional experience relating to the issues of affordable housing. It is also connected to a range of community and professional networks that together become activated and synchronized can bring about transformation so that affordable housing is affordable for everyone in St. Petersburg. The work group is committed to keeping their primary focus on the goal of greatly expanding affordable housing and land trust in St. Petersburg, with both home ownership and house rentals available to all. The recommendations: prioritize construction of new homes for households at or below 80% of the AMI. We're willing to partner and harness the CRA funds and the Tropicana Master Plan to address affordable housing needs. We're also willing to explore ways to increase the availability and affordable housing through disposition foreclosure, lots, and city-owned vacant lots. Develop a system for regularly updating and publicly available data for information related to affordable housing. There's a need for a bold, innovative ideas in order to actually reach the goal of affordable housing for everyone in St. Petersburg. The City of St. Petersburg is urged to consider these recommendations and ideas and genuinely, forcefully commit in achieving the ultimate goal of affordable housing for everyone in St. Petersburg. We're asking you to color the landscape of the city outside of the traditional lines. Let's do better together at home. Let's open the door for families each year. Let's open the resources for new ideas, new recipients, and new affordable homes. Thank you for your time.
Greetings. We are the co-chairs of the Community Wealth Committee for the New Deal for St. Pete, and today we come with a long-asked-for solution, a way to equalize economic development and stabilize historically neglected areas of Midtown and South St. Petersburg. For too long, our community has been told a false narrative about our role in building and benefiting from local economies. Today, we respectfully ask for $400,000 to properly fund our Community Business Development Center that educates, trains, and provides technical and resource assistance to form and grow cooperative businesses and youth-owned co-ops. A cooperative is a business owned and operated by the people who use or create its services. Through local ownership, they cycle back wealth by returning on average 60 cents for every dollar back into local community, because owners are local, not distant shareholders. Globally, cooperative businesses are used to overcome poverty. More than 10 U.S. cities are funding cooperative business development and have proven they create higher wages and have a significantly lower failure rate than traditional enterprises. $400,000 is 0.1% of the city's $500 million annual budget, and is consistent, if not less than, what other cities are funding. Cooperative businesses also address market failure and fill gaps that many private businesses ignore. We can nourish our citizens' needs for, among other things, affordable, healthy food, affordable housing, and quality child and elder care. For the first time in 20 years, cooperative businesses will be counted in the 2018 U.S. economic census. This may mean additional funding federal funding for cities that support cooperative business development. Fund this center so that we all may realize true ownership, self-reliance, and community wealth building. Thank you.
Kimberly Weiss and Mary Dowd.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kimberly Weiss, and I want to thank you guys so much for coming out here and listening to us. I've lived in the city of St. Petersburg for about 20 years now. I was educated here, I live here, I work here, and I play here. So I wanted to thank you for your remarks, Mayor Kreisman, about the affordable housing line in the budget, because I am absolutely in support of the PBR's efforts for bringing that to the forefront. It is something that's very near and dear to my heart. The PBR is also trying to get community wealth initiatives, opportunities for education, affordable housing, and I always forget the other one, and the other one. Living wages, thank you. We got that one, so we're good now, right? So I wanted to tell you why affordable housing and all of these are so important to me, is because I am one of the people that has been helped by having affordable housing in St. Petersburg, the few houses that are affordable here. So, but unfortunately, my story is a little bit of a sad one. So in August 2011, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother died. And then in December of that same year, I lost my mother. And then a couple of years after that, I lost my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. And I'm very, very happy that they all died, and they all died in that order, because what that meant was that I inherited a $50,000 part of the family farm that had been in my family for 100 years that got sold. And that $50,000 got me through a couple of years of not being able to afford my rent, even though I worked 40 hours a week for the city. This was a few years ago. And I had a hard few years watching my inheritance dwindle away and being unable to do anything to get myself out of that poverty, knowing that if things didn't change for me, then when that money ran out, there was nothing I could do. And I don't know if I would have been able to stay living, working, and playing in St. Petersburg. Thankfully, my husband won his disability case and was permanently disabled in 2016. Yay! But the good news with that was that because it had taken him 3 years to get through that, we got another lump sum of money, and now a little bit more stable and with a little bit more living wage because I'm part of the city and our raises were being increased. I was finally, October 2017, to afford a house. And I've been able to then help my friends and neighbors by moving other people into my house. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm trying to think of other ways that we could raise revenue for St. Pete. We always need more money, and you may have read the recent article in the Tampa Bay Times, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, by Susan Taylor Martin regarding the shortage of city inspectors and therefore the need to rely on private inspectors to come in. And there was one developer that had been cited for not following through with the plans he had submitted. And Rick Dunn, the building inspector at the time, said the stop work order that was issued was penalty enough. And I thought, wow, that doesn't really make sense. Why isn't there a fine? And I feel like with the construction boom that's taking place right now in St. Pete, that there ought to be heavy fines levied for those folks that are blatantly disregarding the, been violating construction. So that's one way. Another way, I think, that isn't being enforced by the city is we have an abundance of Airbnbs, and oftentimes, at least in my neighborhood, those houses are being, you can go on Airbnb right now and you can see houses that were recently built that, in my mind, are out of scale and out of character to the neighborhood of the Old Northeast, and they're charging $750 a night. And there's no fine, no penalty, or anything. And I think that if the city were to enforce the laws regarding short-term rentals, there's another way to make more money. Another way I'm thinking too is, I don't know who is working on finding companies that do commercials and photo shoots, but this building and a lot of the old buildings, Sunken Gardens, that are owned by the city, Shuffleboard Court, there's a great, if the word is out there about the opportunity for location shoots, especially commercials, there's a lot of money to be made there. So those are some of the things that come to mind. Your city staff has pointed out the benefits of preservation in St. Pete and how they actually draw people here. And I know that Kanika had a meeting at the mayor, meeting with the mayor last Monday night at Sunken Gardens, and she listed the 3 Ps as being the pier, the police station, and public works, and they're absolutely worthy causes, but I'd like to see a 4th P for preservation. Thank you.
Mark Doyle, Matt Bird, and G. Alex Morphus. Mark Doyle.
Hi, y'all. First time doing this, never yet really talked like this or anything, so I'm just gonna kind of ramble a little bit. I don't have stat sheets or anything, so all this is typically conjecture. 32 years old, born and raised here in St. Pete. Thank you personally for bringing us basically out of a really bad recession, 13, 14% I think where it started. But that's where my point goes in terms of job employment. A lot of people have jobs here, the jobs have grown, but it's what kind of jobs are they having? Are they using their degrees and their diplomas when they go to school? Which kind of ties into living wages, right? So my biggest question was, and I'm a huge baseball fan, love the Rays since they've been here. The biggest thing I heard why they would be moving is, well, there's not a lot of corporate sponsorship. well, what is the city necessarily doing in order to get a lot of corporate companies like J-Bill in order to St. Pete, so they're not just going across the bridge, but they're here to support the people with those degrees, those diplomas, like in tech, in certain industries and businesses, because this is a very liberal arts city. But I don't see a lot of progress in those areas. Secondly, basically, I just want to touch on a couple of properties in South St. Pete, because that's where I live. Tying into that corporate nature, I don't understand why certain, the complex in Kakinaki, the 62nd Avenue complex, where the old cash and carry Sweet Bay was, and the old Kmart right now on 34th Street. I have no idea why those properties are dilapidated the way they are, and why they've been on the market in certain areas the way they are. I understand the boom down here in downtown, but I think that a little money spread out towards the south side would be fantastic. Also, I just think it'd be really important with all the progress that we do that we just don't feel, riding through St. Pete kind of feels segregated at times. And I just don't want the people in the segregated areas to feel like we're not a part of all the goodness that y'all are incorporating into the city. Because there is a lot of great going on, but I don't think a lot of other people in certain dire needs and situations feel that growth and that progress as well. So I just think it's important for a council and a mayor to incorporate everybody, right? And I'm not saying you're not trying to do that. I'm just saying that talking to people every single day, it doesn't feel like that. And I think that's very important. So anyways, gentrification is a big word, right? We all don't want to experience that, like in Baltimore, like in Harlem, certain areas in the states of America. So anyways, thank you guys. I really look forward to what's gonna happen on the site development for the CHOP when it's gone. But that's another thing that I also want individuals who are on the other side of the interstate to feel like they have a part in it too. So anyways, thank you, appreciate it. God bless everybody.
Matt Bird, then G. Alex Morphus.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council Chair, City Councilwoman, and staff. My name is Matt Bird. I'm with the Education Committee for the New Deal for St. Pete. We're asking for a budget of $5,000 to $10,000 for a trades industry summit. The purpose of this summit will be to connect the dots between the service providers, the training facilities, and the actual hard-to-hire population. Since the hard-to-hire population doesn't normally hang out in the areas where this information is being disseminated, we want to use the bulk of this budget for outreach. We want to go door-to-door, palm cards. We possibly want to do some radio and television if we have the room. So we can basically start by maximizing what we already have in place, getting it to the people that need it most. That's all I have. Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm not that tall. Thank you, Mayor, for having this event. My name is Alex Morphus. I work with the St. Pete Business League. I'm the Volunteer Housing and Economic Development Coordinator. I've put together some crazy idea called the 555 plan, which hopefully no one will fully fund, because then it'll have to work. But in reference to using the city funds for affordable housing, there's the $16 million from WikiWachi. Currently, the city over the last 5 to 10 years has worked very hard and done very successfully focused on the arts. But why couldn't those funds be used as a pool for affordable housing for loans? Because they're just sitting on Wall Street with a lower yield in terms of where they're held. And the funds could give a higher return to the city, plus become a pool of capital to cycle through for other sources of capital that exist. Secondly, the FFGFC is just closing down. Is the city going to get a final report on what cycled through those funds? Hopefully. Now, in terms of the Southside CRA, I read through the budget, and other than for health funding, there is no current. Is there any current intent to raise any funds for the Southside CRA? And if so, will the city make Anna Fritz available so that we can try to coordinate with Standard & Poor's and Moody's in terms of preparing them, that the community has a wide net that might help fund those types of things? How much time have I got left? Oh, all right. I would ask the city to consider boarding up instead of demolishing buildings. I know that there's SHIP funds and there's HUD funds available, but at the end of the day, the city does end up using more funds to demolish properties than actually fix properties and support them and preserve them. Finally, I know the greenhouse does a lot of great stuff and the Chamber of Commerce is involved, but I beg the city to consider who is allowed to use the greenhouse when they go to federal regulators with the OCC and the Federal Reserve for the type of funding they're supposed to do. Because a perfect example is US Ameribank that's done a great job of talking up what they do, but in their last Hum-Day report, they couldn't find any single unmarried black female, nor any single unmarried Hispanic female to give any loans to. Now I know why they've worked up this great, I don't want to use the word washing of their legacy that they used to have in Chicago, but they've attached themselves to DePaul and this asset-based community development. But the end result is when they controlled banks, they never lent. So I beg the city, and I know the Chamber of Commerce wants to help its bankers, but I beg the city to give strong consideration that when they let these lenders attach themselves to the greenhouse, that you require them to do something.
Time.
Thank you.
No more speakers, Madam Chair.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and participating tonight and being part of our city's budget process. Chair Wheeler-Bowman and Councilmember Driscoll, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight during not so great weather, coming out to meet some of the folks from our different departments and give them a chance to show you what they're doing with your money. Thank you also and especially for speaking up tonight and telling us what you're looking for as we move forward with next year's budget. This is an important year for us to decide how our city moves forward, and with your input, we can definitely look ahead to even sunnier days than we already have. It's not easy putting together a budget that reflects our values and works for the people, but because you spoke up tonight, we know much more clearly what that means. The way that I see it is pretty much like the People's Budget Review puts it, the New Deal for St. Pete. It does mean finding new companies to come in and continue our economic development that we're enjoying right now. But what that needs to involve is bringing in jobs that people here, already living here, can do. That means making sure that people are prepared, that people have the educational opportunities to take those jobs, earn living wages and more, money that pays the bills so you can buy that house, an affordable one. And lastly, and perhaps the most important thing that we really need to focus on is building community wealth. Because we can bring in all the companies from outside that we want, but the real wealth, the real pride comes from within. So, as we move forward in the coming weeks, working on the budget and going through all of the details, just know that we heard you here tonight. We are here to make sure that your money goes to the things that you want, the things that we all want, because this is who we are. Thank you again for coming tonight, and I'm going to stick around, so if you'd like to have a quick conversation or just say hello, I'd love to say hi. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Now I would like to hand the mic over to Mayor Kreisman for any closing remarks.
Thank you, and again, thank you all for coming here tonight and sharing your your thoughts with us. Obviously, one of the issues that resonated throughout the evening's discussion was about affordable housing. And I'm going to take it a step further than that, because it's a definition that seems to be constantly changing as to what's considered affordable and for whom is it affordable, and whether we're talking about those who are of lower income or we're talking about working class families and families in general, because in this city we have an abundance of 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but if you're a family, you need a little bit bigger than that, and it needs to be something you can afford to live in. So I like to also refer to that as attainable housing. We recognize that we have a real challenge in this city when it comes to both affordability and attainability. And what I think, and I want to share with you all that's really important, is no one issue or no one solution is going to solve it. It's going to take multiple strategies. And we are looking around, and my staff and councils and their staff are looking at best practices all over the country, because cities all over are experiencing a revival, but along with that, challenges about affordability. So we're looking to see what are other communities doing to try and address this, that we can steal those great ideas and scale them down to our communities so that they work here. And as Councilmember Driscoll was saying, it's not just about putting money into the housing, it's about raising people's income levels so that housing becomes more affordable because they have the resources to pay the rent or to pay the mortgage. And so job creation for both the hard to hire and those who need retraining is also an important focus of our administration and of City Council. We heard people talking about wanting to make sure that economic development happens not just in downtown, but throughout the city and in particular south of Central. And I want you all to know that we are committed to making sure that we continue to try and create jobs south of Central Avenue. We're seeing statistics moving in the right direction, which is encouraging, but that doesn't mean the issue's been solved and the problem's been solved. So know that we are continuing to be focused on our efforts at working on those issues. Tropicana site, I heard somebody talking about that tonight. There is incredible opportunity on that site. We've already done phase one, what we called phase one of the master plan, which is what would that site look like with the stadium. We held a number of meetings with the public to get input. Know that we're going to be doing that again, because we're going to take a look at it, what it would look like without a stadium. And so we're going to want to continue to hear from you. But know that the history of that site is important to us. And that we understand and we recognize that there were promises made about job creation that really never happened. And so we're committed to making sure whatever we do on that site involves the creation of good jobs that pay a living wage. It also gives us opportunities for affordable and attainable housing because it's property that's owned by the city, and one of the driving forces of expensive housing is the cost of land. And when the city owns the land, we have the ability to have housing on that property that's more affordable and more attainable. The last two things I'll make comments on real quickly are, I know someone had talked about looking at blighted properties and demolitions versus rehabs. When I took office a little over 4.5 years ago, we had more than 800 blighted homes in the city of St. Petersburg. Today, that number is down to about 244. Understand that the difference between those numbers wasn't demolition of all those houses. And every opportunity that we had, and I saw Carl Nurse here earlier, I don't know if Carl's still here, but I know he was very involved in this, as were the rest of council. We looked for opportunities to have those homes renovated and put back on the market in an affordable manner, and when they couldn't be, then there was a demolition that occurred. But again, we turned to the nonprofits like Frank in your organization to have them come in and build on those properties and ensure that they were put back on the market in an affordable manner. We're going to continue to look for those opportunities to do that. Last thing on the Southside CRA, what we've done in partnership with the county is really something that I think is quite incredible. First off, creating the largest CRA in all of Pinellas County, but secondly, taking the revenues that are generated in that CRA and investing them back in the community, in the people of the community, rather than just in the buildings and infrastructure and places. Knowing that if we invest in people, we're going to see a better result. The good news is that CRA and the funds in that CRA are growing and have grown from the first year to the second year, giving us more dollars, and they're going to continue growing, more dollars that we can invest back into the community and hopefully continue to see what we're starting to see now, which is a decline in poverty rates that we haven't seen in the city in a long time. And it isn't just the city's efforts, it's the partnership that the city has with the community, whether it's People's Budget Review or it's Agenda 2020. It's all of us coming together, working together to make a difference in our community. That's what's going to change our community. So I want to thank you all for being here. The fact that you're here shows that you care about this city. You care about the future of the city. You want to see better things for the city, and that's how we make a change. That's how we truly create a city of opportunity where the sun does shine on all who come to live, work, and play. So thank you all so much. Thank you all. Good evening. Good night.